Who's up next in the golden chair? Certified life coach and digital course creator who helps women navigate the complex transitions of life with clarity, compassion, and confidence, Jenn Gruber. I am your host, Christina Vidovich of Women Getting Visible. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this week of Women Getting Visible. Guess who I have with me here? Miss Jenn Gruber. Hi, Jenn.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Christina. It's great to be here.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for being here. And I am so excited to celebrate you as one of the speakers at the Women Getting Visible conference that we just had. And just before we went live here, we were just having a little bit of chat of all the fun things that we were doing and some of the plans for next year, which is so super duper exciting. But oh my goodness. So tell us where you're calling in from today and a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. So I'm calling in from Silver Spring, Maryland, kind of right in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, for anyone who's not familiar with the area, East Coast of the United States. I, like you said, am a life coach. My specialty area is life transitions. And in particular, I love working with people whose parents are aging and declining and who are overwhelmed by the impact that's having on their lives. So typically a woman who is a busy professional who's juggling a lot, who's got a lot on her plate, career, kids, and now is noticing that her parents, because of either physical or cognitive decline, are needing more support. And she's trying to figure out how to incorporate that in her life. So I would help that client by I would help that person to navigate all of the difficult, uncomfortable emotions that go along with this chapter, to get clarity around what her goals and priorities are, to figure out how to have the difficult, uncomfortable conversations that are sometimes a part of this, and then to make a plan that makes everything feel more manageable.
And that is an incredible job in itself. One, to be in the person who is in that situation, but then to be the coach, because being able to be that coach is someone who's lived it. When you are, and I loved your topic, when children, parents, and career collide.
Exactly.
And like, oh.
Yeah, it's a role that a lot of us who find ourselves there are not necessarily expecting. We haven't invited in this role, and we feel really ill prepared to handle it a lot of times.
Yeah. And I love this because, we often refer to it simply as the sandwich, that we're going on. But I even had one lady whose mother was in her mid-90s, and she goes, "Oh, I'm in the club sandwich."
Yeah.
I'm like,
exactly. Take it and elevate it to another level, right? Not just a sandwich.
Yeah. So what created this idea that this was your mission, that this is where you needed to go with your coaching?
Yeah. So I made a career pivot probably about 9 years ago. I started thinking about what I wanted to do next. I was kind of approaching being an empty nester. I'd done a lot of things in my career, but nothing that really felt like what I was meant to do. I always had this feeling that, there's some purpose here for me. There's something that I want to do. I just couldn't figure out what it was. So it kind of did a lot of exploring, landed on coaching. Once I found that modality, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And as I started thinking about who I might want to work with, it made sense to me that I would support women who are kind of like me, getting to that midlife empty nest period and trying to figure out what their next chapter would look like. But I realized that kind of within that group, there's so many people who are dealing with situations like the one I had been through. I had lost my dad a couple of years prior to Alzheimer's. And when I was in that space, I had 3 busy teenagers with active schedules. I had a job. I had a lot on my plate, and I had no idea where to turn, what kind of resources were out there. And I managed to figure things out, but it would have been so much easier if I had known on the front end what I learned on the back end. So partly, and I realized that anytime I was around women, uh, within 10 or 20 years of my age and the topic of parents came up, everyone was having the same topic. My dad really shouldn't be driving anymore, but he won't give up the keys. Or I can't convince my parents to downsize. So I realized that while there are a lot of resources out there for seniors and there's support for caregivers, there's nothing for these adult children who don't really identify as caregivers, but who are in this really uh, in this space where they just feel unsupported and could really use support. So partly I realized there was an opportunity to help educate people, help connect them with the resources that are available. But more than that, I realized that so many people get so caught up in the overwhelm of this period and the sadness and the frustration, the resentment, the guilt a lot of times that's all we can see. And that really deprives us of opportunities to connect with our parents and to enjoy these final months or years of their life. And it impacts our other relationships as well. So being able to support people in a way that allows them to find fulfillment and joy in this chapter is what I love about what I do.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because just like you're talking about, we as women often are going, I'm going to figure this out. I can do this. I can do this by myself. But
Yes.
then we're the hardest ones on
Yeah,
ourselves about that.
for
And to
sure.
finally just go, okay, I need to ask for help. I need to figure out what I'm doing, because unless you've already dealt with a situation, be it your grandmother, be it an aunt, be it somebody else in your life, especially when it comes to your own parents,
Yeah.
there's a lot of emotion that
Yes.
gets thrown in there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that we feel like as women, there's this idea that like we should be able to do it all. We can have a career and raise a family and have a clean house and bring healthy snacks to the soccer games. And why wouldn't we be able to be on top of what our parents need as well? Plus, we have the whole internet at our disposal, right? So any information we want, well, all we have to do is Google it, and then we can become an expert on that. And yeah, I mean, that's definitely what I thought. I don't know. I've never been an executor of an estate, but I can Google like what I'm doing. I can Google power of attorney. But then you realize, like, why would I think that I could become an expert on that just by going online? And even if I could, is that really what I want to spend my time doing, my time and my energy, especially when there's so many professionals out there who that's what their job is. We all have, expertise in our own areas, and why wouldn't we want to pull in support from people with expertise in those areas?
Yeah, and I think you said it right there. It's that
Yeah.
time that you're spending doing all that research, because it's hours of research and going through like, yes, this, no, this. Oh my goodness, how do I redefine all this? When you could be using that time so much better to
Yeah.
be present for your children, for your parents, and yourself.
Exactly. And then it's the second guessing yourself, like, "Oh, did I do everything right? Did I miss anything? Am I, is this okay?" The stress that comes from just continuing to worry
Yeah, yeah.
when you're bearing all of that yourself.
Exactly. And what a load on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you that magic question I ask everybody on your own personal scale
Yeah.
of 1 to 10 in visibility, a 10 being completely visible and 1 being less visible. Where are you on your own scale of that 1 to 10?
So I know that that's a question you always ask. And so for me, there's two different ways I could answer. If I'm thinking about how comfortable I am being visible, how comfortable I am talking about what I do and my value and kind of stepping into myself. Uh, I think there's always room for improvement. I'd put myself 8.5, 9 on that scale. And that's very different than where I used to be. If we're talking about where I am on my visibility journey as far as the breadth of my current audience and how much impact I would love to make and what I envision for myself and how much potential I see for myself, then I'm way back, I don't know, maybe around a 2 because I know I just have more so much more that I want to give and achieve.
Ooh, this is so juicy. Well, let's go to your first one. When you're talking about what you're doing in your business, you had
Sure.
mentioned 8.5 to 9, but it wasn't always like that. What was it before? And
So,
why?
yeah. Um, I mentioned that I had worked in a lot of jobs, a lot of roles that just didn't feel quite right to me, and those when I was doing something that I didn't feel passionate about, that didn't really energize me, I really wasn't comfortable. I don't know, probably back on a 2 or 3 maybe. Um, but I found that if I were doing something like volunteering and I were speaking as a representative of another organization, then I was comfortable being visible. But when I was speaking on my own behalf or being building my own brand, when if I considered myself my brand, that was really low. Um, so it took me a while to get to a point where I was comfortable not just being visible, but being visible around my own mission, my own goals, my own business, my own brand.
So what was the changing point? What was that made you say, you know what, I can't stay at this anymore. It's time to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, I it's so funny to think about this now, but when I was like 48, 49, I thought, I've always felt like there was something else I wanted to do, but it's probably too late now. I'm almost 50. If I wanted to do something different, I should have figured that out a long time ago. And like I said, now that seems crazy to me because 50 obviously is not that old, but I I thought, okay, well, do I want to just continue on this path that I'm on because nothing's forcing me to make a change. And I realized that I didn't want to get to the end of my life feeling like I wished I had done something different or like I had missed my opportunity or like there was some untapped potential that I was leaving this world without fulfilling. So that was what initially prompted me or got me to that next step. And then, the more I learned, the more confident I became as a coach, as a business owner, the more I was able to step into that. And then what really propelled me was not so much a fear of what I might not achieve or accomplish. It became, oh my gosh, I've got so much valuable insight to give, and I have this amazing service that I can offer people, and I don't want to not be able to share that because I'm afraid of what people might think, or I'm afraid that, like, what if I put out this blog post and people think it's dumb? Like I didn't want, it became not that, it became less about avoiding things I was afraid of and more about having something that I felt so strongly about that I really wanted to share.
And it's funny, it's, what I call that getting out of your own way. It's like,
Yeah.
how many times we're the ones? It's like, yes, I have all these skills and I can do all these amazing things, but you forget that you can do all of those things. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. And it's so amazing because the minute that you kind of let it go even a little bit and then a little bit more, you're like, oh, wow, it's being received really well because, oh, I do know my stuff.
Well, and that's the thing, like, once you start getting that response, like, then it starts to get so much easier because you can kind of build on that momentum from like, "Ooh, okay, like, people are, like, this response is giving me more confidence and making me feel better about myself." And then, you're kind of snowballing in the right direction.
Ooh, I like that one. And let's talk to the other one is you had mentioned a 2. So in what you're doing, with that, and you want to move that number higher,
Mhm.
what are you thinking about? How does that impact what you're doing now and where you're going?
Ooh, great question. Um, so I work right now primarily with people, one-on-one, in either one-on-one coaching relationships or in group coaching, settings. And in that format, there's only so many people I can coach one-on-one, right? So, I've created an online course that allows people to I kind of go through what a coaching relationship with me would be like, but to do it on their own time. And, also a lot of people, there what we're talking about is so personal, and there are so many really difficult emotions oftentimes involved that even talking with a professional is hard for a lot of people. So having something that's self-directed also gives people an opportunity to experience coaching without having to have those hard conversations with me or with another coach or professional. So creating an online course is, one way that I've, worked on expanding my reach, and then, additionally, finding more speaking opportunities, getting in front of bigger groups is, I love being able to, kind of educate and inspire that way. I was on a speaker panel this morning that was, anytime I'm in front of a group, that energizes me.
Yeah, same. There's something special about that. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because one of the words that's coming to my mind is validity. When people are having those emotions, and then when they're working with someone who's going, yeah, your emotions are real. What you're going through is actually happening. It's not in your mind that you're feeling all this heaviness, this weight, and that the reason that you're here is so that we can say, yeah, it's okay to feel this way. And how do we want to feel? How can we move forward?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm, like, smiling because that was, like, the first point I made at my presentation this morning. I think we all we're surrounded by people all the time who tell us, "Oh my gosh, like, don't worry so much about that," or, "Just be positive, look on the bright side and focus on the good parts, and, like, don't feel guilty about that. You shouldn't feel guilty." And people say those things because they love us or care about us, want to be supportive. They feel like they're helping us. But in reality, what that does is it tells us that our feelings aren't valid, that we shouldn't be feeling the way that we feel. And then when we kind of take that in and try to squelch our feelings or try to manipulate our feelings, that does a couple of things. First of all, those feelings don't magically disappear just because we're ignoring them. They live somewhere in our bodies. So we're either have our stomach is in knots, or we have a headache, or pain in our neck, and or it turns into a thought that wakes us up in the middle of the night. And the other thing is, it takes a lot of energy to try to change the way we're feeling. And when we're already dealing with something that is really draining and exhausting, and our energy is lower, we're not at our optimal point anyhow. And then we take what little energy we do have left and spend it trying to force ourselves to feel the way we don't feel, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice. So yes, absolutely. Like you said, just so much of what I do is reminding people that, like, yeah, like it makes sense that you feel the way that you do.
Yeah. Do you have a golden moment so far in your coaching career of something that was your kind of a wow for you, of like, oh wow, I actually touched this person's life who I felt like I didn't know if I was going to get through?
Ooh.
No names, no names.
Yeah. No, my favorite, the one that always comes to mind for me, it was a conversation I had with two family members. One came to me because she was having a lot of trouble with another family member. They just weren't on the same page when it came to the parents' care. And the one said, I think we need to put some things in action. But my family member refuses to talk. She's in denial. And through a very short conversation, and she had told me, I said, okay, well, yeah, absolutely, I can have a conversation with both of you. And she said, okay, well, I'm just going to warn you, she might not say anything. She might get on the call and refuse to talk. She might just start crying. And I said, okay, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And what happened was that the first person, I said, I'll give you each equal time to talk. Just tell me what you're hoping to get out of this call. And the first person told me pretty much what she had told me in advance. And when the second one talked, she said, it's not that I don't want to talk about this. It's that anytime I open my mouth, you tell me that I'm wrong. And so it's easier for me just to say nothing. Like, I would talk if I didn't feel like you were criticizing everything I said. And the first one, she was good. She said, I can't say I agree with everything you're saying, but I do know that I come across that way sometimes. And so by the end of the conversation, we had come up with some strategies for how they could have more productive conversations. And the one who was having, who had not been talking, said, oh, well, I'm okay with you asking me questions as long as you're okay with me not necessarily having an immediate answer for you. You move at a fast pace and you connect dots really quickly in your mind. I need a little more time to think things over. And so they realize that they communicate differently, they process things differently, but really their goals regarding their parents' care were not that different. And so it was just getting them to a place where they could, number one, see that there was common ground, to identify what that common ground was, and then make some very simple modifications in the way they were communicating with each other. So that one really, I felt like, ooh, like I love that.
Oh, that's great. And it's so interesting, again, you're putting yourself out there as the expert, as somebody with your own personal experience going through this.
Yeah.
How does it feel to become more visible as you're going on your journey to be speaking in crowds, speaking online? Tell me a little bit more about that for you personally.
Yeah. So a couple of things. on one hand, super energizing. Like I said, kind of feed off the energy of being visible, of knowing that, seeing those nods when, you know, how many people in the room, when you think about your next chapter, have some mixed emotions, and you see those hands raised and those nods, like that is super energizing. Definitely feed off that. The part that's challenging is because by nature, I'm such an empathetic and intuitive listener. And because through the education and training that I've had, I've honed those skills. So really, I'm really good at putting other people in the spotlight. You know, when I'm listening, it's not about me. And so I think that's the part where the biggest challenge lies, is putting the spotlight back on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand that, you know, again, my training is actually in psychology once upon a time before
Yeah.
my entire life unfolded. We never know, right?
Yep.
But it's absolutely, I understand that, because you're holding that space for people all the time, and you're making sure that they're visible first
Yes.
and foremost to you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Like when I love making people feel seen and heard and valued, and that's really energizing for me as well. So, so it feels a little bit counterintuitive sometimes to turn things around and to want to make myself seen and heard.
Yes. So what's next for you? Do you have a book coming up? Do you have more courses? You're going to be speaking on more stage and more panels?
Uh, Great questions. There's a book somewhere in my future. That's not the next thing on my list. My course, I've just finished my beta launch of the course I was talking about, doing a bigger launch in January. So that's my next big thing, January launch of my course, supporting your parents in their next chapter. And additionally, I've lots of speaking opportunities lined up. So I'm really excited about that too.
Fantastic. So supporting your parents in your next chapter or their next
In
chapter?
their next chapter. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
So if somebody was interested in finding out how to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yep. My best way is my website, www.jenngruber.com, Jenn, two N's, Gruber. And there's a contact form there. My phone number, I think, is on my website, but definitely through my website. Also LinkedIn, Jenn Gruber Coaching, Instagram, Jenn Gruber Coaching. Yeah.
All
Any
the
of those.
I love that. So we can find you at Jenn with two N's, Gruber.com. I love
That's
that.
exactly.
And are you taking anybody for these courses? Do they have to do a prerequisite, or you reach out to you and you go from there? How does it work?
They can reach out to me and we'll go from there. There's currently a waiting list. So there's a form that'll pop up on my website where they can just fill that out, and I'll be in touch with more information.
Fantastic. It's so exciting for this next chapter for you as well.
Yeah, I guess. And the other thing that I'll mention is I love working with groups. So organizations who want to offer something to their employees, to their group. That's another thing I love, facilitating workshops and presenting in that format.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we'll find Jenn on LinkedIn, Insta, Facebook, and her website. So fantastic.
Exactly.
Jenn, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for you're amazing. Thank you.
Aw, thank you, Christina. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to be here with you.
Thanks.
Who will be up next in the Golden Chair? Join us next week. I am your host, Christina Vidovich of Women Getting Visible.